What is up, my girls? Welcome back to another episode of Call Her Holy. I'm Laura Eldridge.
And I'm Nicoletta Bradley.
We got our boss babe in the house, Chele. What's your new last name?
Himstedt.
I had this panic moment. I was like, wait, it's not Naudine anymore.
I literally was like, I have no idea what her last name is. And we've worked together for a long time, and I have no clue.
Okay, there was this moment in Chele's wedding where, first of all, she did a voiceover, which I feel like that's like a new trend, and you're the first one I've heard do it, and it was like so weepy. Before she came down the aisle, her voice was playing, and it was just this.
Wait, what?
It was, I mean, her wedding was like such a moment. But then, Nicoletta, I need to tell you, her speeches. She's standing in front of everyone, and like she's going through these great, like, thank you for, and I need to say thank you to all these people, and it's just this
In the
warm
voiceover.
moment. No, after the voiceover, like
At the reception.
Okay,
So
gotcha,
sorry, I did
on
not
it.
explain that well. The voiceover was like this weepy moment, right, of her wedding.
Okay.
It was so sweet.
At the
that
ceremony.
was in the ceremony.
So I'm imagining like you're walking down the aisle and your voice is playing.
It was before she walked down the aisle. So
Okay.
nobody has seen the bride, and it's just this moment of tension, and all of a sudden she comes on and she's like, Matthew, I've waited for you my whole life.
Yeah, it was basically.
And now I'm coming for you, Matthew.
Comment
Here
for
I
you.
am. No, it was basically like a kind of just very, like, gentle, quiet,
It was a really
soft-spoken
sweet.
moment. To me, like, I wanted to, like, set the tone after, like, the Flower Girls and, like, all that stuff, and just, like, reminding him that it was just about us.
I
like,
love.
that day.
Okay, so she's walking down the aisle. One, you see me. My
She was
makeup.
bawling.
My makeup was gone at that point. I didn't stand a chance.
But first off, we have to acknowledge that you went the day before in wedding gear and you showed up on the wrong day.
Sure did. Showed up to your wedding on the wrong day. I was also freshly postpartum, so I have a newborn strapped to me. Anyways, but here's what I wanted to tell you. I was telling two stories, but in her reception, she's doing her thank yous. She's like, thank you to this person, thank you to that person. And she says, lastly, I'd like to thank me. And then she basically says, like, I just threw an amazing party.
Like, enjoy. And it's like from the Snoop Dogg, like, meme.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes,
and
I know.
lastly, I'd like to thank me. And so I was just like, I'll just do that at my own wedding, because why not?
Why the
We
frick
were
not, girl?
laughing
We
so
thank God
hard.
for you,
Yes.
Chele. Truly. But we really are thankful for you. And we're excited about today. We're excited about this episode because it was just hilarious that for those who are maybe new to Call Her Holy, we have been responding to Call Her Daddy episodes for the last few weeks. And we're going to be doing the same today. And Alex Cooper brought in her best friend, so very on par. You are one of Laura's best friends. And she's talking about broken engagement. And when we got the clip from Instagram last night saying she's talking about broken engagements and knowing that you were coming on today, we share a very similar story
Yeah.
in broken engagements, heartbreak, all that kind of thing. And now you are happily married. I was not able to make your wedding, but I just heard the most beautiful things about it. And so I'm excited for today. I'm excited for women to hear your story. I know that you and I relate deeply on our stories with
Yeah.
pain and heartbreak and just, man, beginning to see the redemption story. And so just that reminder, if it's not good, God's not done yet. And so really, truly, so we're responding to Alex Cooper. She brought on her best friend to tell about how her best friend called off or pretty much almost called off an engagement in January. But we are bringing you on to tell your story.
Yeah.
And so if you're new, I also had a broken engagement. You can go back a few episodes. We have broken engagements part 1 and part 2. You're going to hear a little bit more about my story in detail today. But really, Chele, would love for you just to tell people who you are, a little bit about your story. Why did this episode relate to you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here. I have been kind of behind the scenes involved with Call Her Holy.
Yeah,
from
you have. You're boss.
You
basically,
really
like,
have.
day one.
Yeah.
Call Her Holy would not
so-
be here without our girl Chele. Truly, I mean that.
Thank
They wouldn't
you.
be.
So it's been fun, but yeah, this kind of, I guess, cohesion between the Call Her Daddy episode that dropped in my background is like just kind of funny.
Very comical.
But yeah, pretty funny. So 3 years ago, I almost married the wrong person. And that's not really to say much about him or me. It's more so to just say sometimes things don't work out and get really ugly really
Yeah.
fast. So now, fast forward 3 years, I'm married
Happily.
to an amazing man.
Yeah.
And we are so happy. We got married in December, and I met him about 7 or 8 months after my breakup that I thought was like a life ender, ruiner. I'm going to be alone forever. So Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and hopefully give people some hope and like see that you can go through the really hard time. And sometimes God like drops this guy into your life. Like sometimes he does that really fast. And I was very worried about the timeline, like getting, the breakup and calling off the wedding and all that stuff. And feeling like it's going to be another like 10 years until I find somebody.
Yeah.
And God was like, no, it's actually going to be in this same year. And it's going to be after you go through all of the healing and things that I need you to do. And then I met my now husband. So I hope that encourages people and excited to talk about it more.
I feel like there are so many people listening who are just like, wait, can you press into that? Can you press into that? Because they have so many questions about their own relationships and like, when do I call it off? How do you know if it's right? Like, how do you know if you're ready again? And we're going to touch on some of those, but we're also going to touch on some other things that we found in the episode. If you're not dating, that will be also really helpful for you. Or if you're not in a season where you're like wondering if your relationship is the right one. A quick overview of the episode so you don't have to listen to it. Alex Cooper had her best friend Lauren on, and they started off just kind of reminiscing on their party stories. I used to do that with my best friends. We kind of just dove straight into the party scene, but they started reminiscing on their party stories and talking about how they would go to strip clubs for fun and get lap dances and things like that. And then they moved into some other things that were actually, there were some tidbits of really helpful advice, if you will, about how when Alex knew that her friend was going to get engaged, she actually like sat her down and she was like, I can tell there's some things you're not telling me. So like, let's talk about it. Because there's more here. So there was some discernment on her part, their friendship.
And then also she gave her all her opinions.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like, hey, like I'm going to give you all my thoughts and then you get to decide what you do with it. And that's something that when I was engaged, my friends didn't do. And so that was actually really good. But keep going.
No, let's actually, that was kind of the highlight. Like you talk about her relationships and then there were like some tips here and there for, when you feel the timeline pressure and all of that, which girls feel. It's just a real thing. And so let's actually talk about what you just mentioned for a second, because I want to hear what you wish people would have done for you when you were about to call off an engagement.
Yeah, so I dated a guy for 2 years. We got engaged, and I just remember feeling lack of peace, just complete lack of peace. But similar to what Lauren was talking about in her episode, she said a few things that I thought was really good. She says, you don't want to disrupt what you have spent so long in building. And the other thing was, you felt in your gut that it was off, but you don't want to give up the future. You keep going because you don't want to give up the good parts. And I thought it was interesting. And the last thing she said was, when you are unsure about someone, you simply chase the next milestone, basically for security. And so in my relationship, I kept going, okay, he's a good guy. He loves the Lord. I love the Lord. This should work. But why do I have such lack of peace? And it was my gut. My gut was telling me it wasn't right, but I wanted to be married. We have spent 2 years together. And to be honest, I'm now 28 at the time in the Christian culture. That is ancient. Now I'm 32 and single. But at the time, 28 and still single, or 28 was quote unquote older because all my friends were married. And so I was sitting there like, okay, this is right. This has to be right. I'm in the normal time range. He loves me. And I was building more on hope than actual reality.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you can probably relate to that, Chele. But to answer your question, Laura, of what I wish my friends did is, to their kindness, they would say that they were honest. Reflecting, they were 50% honest.
Oof.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't sit me down. And they said they sat me down. And they did. But they didn't go, here's everything that we're seeing.
So your friends all saw it. They were like, there's something
100%.
off here.
100%.
Okay, people are probably listening to that thinking like, wait, is there something off in my relationship? So what are some of the things that they saw without throwing anyone under the bus?
Totally. I mean, 100% lack of peace.
They saw,
no
so they
peace.
saw you wrestling.
Wrestling 24/7. And so what would happen on repeat is me and my ex would get into conflict. I would then run to them for advice. And then I'd be like, okay, this is the type of conversation I want to have with him. And they'd be like, that's great, go for it. I'd go back to him. We wouldn't resolve. I'd go back to them. They would still be sitting with me in lack of resolve.
Wow.
And it was this ping pong because at the end of the day, my ex is a great guy. Our communication was terrible.
Yeah.
And so we were just not great at communicating. And my friends finally were just like, we give up. Like, our advice is not being taken. You're not changing. Your relationship isn't moving forward. So at some point they decided, which, love them, I didn't think was helpful. They said, she's going to do what she wants to do. Let her be free.
So did they think you were like being stubborn? Because I was totally like that.
I don't think it was stubborn. They just said, hey, like, God's got her. Like, we're going to let her just basically, like, she's not taking our advice. Nothing seems to be changing. Go for it.
Okay, so do you wish somebody would have sat you down and said, Nicoletta, I don't think this is it?
I wish they were way more blunt. And so if you're sitting here with a friend who's in a relationship, whether that even be dating, it is the most loving thing to hurt your friendship and be honest. In love. Don't sit there and be like, he's a scumbag, you suck, you're the worst. That's not loving, but be like, hey, these are the red flags I'm seeing. I love you too much not to be extremely honest with you. You need to be honest before the ring. You need to be honest before you walk down the aisle, because they will thank you that you called off an engagement before you're married. Because I have friends that are married right now, miserable.
Yeah,
because
totally.
their friends weren't honest in the process.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be brutally honest in love, not gossiping, not shaming you or their partner. But y'all, call your friends out. What's that one verse that says it is good to call people out?
It's like faithful are the wounds of a friend,
Yes.
but an enemy multiplies kisses.
Come on, that's exactly
There
it.
there are so many scriptures that talk about like faithfully wounding somebody, knowing like, hey, this is gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna be really hard.
Yeah.
I would rather be faithfully wounded by a friend than unfaithfully wounded in marriage. You know what I mean? The wounds of a friend is going to be so much less than the wounds of being married to the wrong person. Call your friends out.
I think to flip it to the other side, though, like the person who's in the relationship, and this is what I did, I isolated myself
Totally.
from all of my friends. I was not honest about everything that was going on in the relationship,
100%.
which would have raised substantial
I would
red
have been
flags.
on you like white on rice.
Laura, if she knew a fourth of what was going on at the time that it was going on, would have called me out, and I fully believe that. But I knew that internally, and I was shielding it, like out of protection for him, out of protection for what I thought our future was going to be together.
Totally.
I didn't want people to see kind of the skeletons in the closet. And I think if you are in a relationship where you feel like that, that is your own sign to get honest with yourself. Get brutally honest with yourself, how you're feeling, because that lack of peace that you were experiencing, Nico, I was experiencing that too, but instead of other people seeing signs of it, I was just hiding from the world.
Yeah, that's let's just like double click on that. If you, like what Chele just said is so powerful. If you feel like there are things in the relationship that you can't tell your friends, that is a red flag. You need to really take an honest look about what's going on, because if there's something that you can't tell your friends, it's not it.
Yeah. And that's not to say that if you're kind of embarrassed of something that's going on, or oh, we're struggling with this, or we had a fight last week or whatever, like a friend who has good judgment isn't going to be like, oh, you guys had an argument, you need to break up.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is like, if you're shielding not even just like the little things, but you're shielding really big things behind the little things.
Yeah.
Then
okay,
that's
so let's okay. What if you're the friend? Because I actually did this after your relationship. I stopped and said, what other questions could I have asked, instead of just like, how's it going? Are you guys enjoying each other? How's purity?
Yeah.
You know, like, so I stopped and asked myself, what are the other questions that I could have asked you to really draw some of that stuff out and like help?
Yeah, I think like, what are your fears? Like, what are your fears about marrying this person? What are things that are not aligned with you two? Even if it's not huge things, it could be little things. Like, it could be like your careers, or your your values on certain worldly things are different. Like things that aren't necessarily like Bible, not Bible, but they're like things that are super important in marriage.
Yeah.
And we were not aligned on basically most of that stuff. So it led to a lot of tension, a lot of strife, and a lot of heartbreak at the end of it. So I think like as a friend, like looking in, I would say like ask specifically about things that are not going well, like more than just purity, more than just, are you reading the Bible? Like, but the other things too that could cause a really stressful engagement and marriage situation.
Okay, but why did you stay? And I'm asking, I mean, we can go
Yeah.
off on this. Like, so many women experience that. It wasn't this. I have all these fears, I have all these anxieties, yet I stayed.
And hindsight is 20/20. So I think a lot of times you can like tell yourself everything's fine. Like these might not be big issues. That's
Yeah.
why it's really important to let somebody else help you filter those out. Because if you have a friend who just really cares about you and knows you, and you can tell them what you need of like, hey, I need you to not like, I'm just going to dump everything and you can just listen right now because it's tender to me. But I think sometimes it's like you need somebody else to help you sort through and ask you strategic questions when you're sharing all of that stuff to help you sort through, okay, this is just a fear versus this is a valid concern.
Totally. But then why did you stay?
Yeah, I mean, I think that hindsight, obviously, I think in what I knew at the time, I thought that things were just going to get better. We didn't date for very long, so I just thought like the more that we just keep dating, like some of these fundamental things are going to work themselves out. You know, like he's a leader in the church, he loves God, like all these different things. I just thought like that would basically hodgepodge everything together and everything would be fine. But I think I learned through that relationship that there's so many different characteristics that I need in a spouse that he did not have. And that's okay. But I think at the time I was like, well, we've picked out a ring, like we've planned this wedding, like we've done these things. So kind of like what Lauren was saying in the episode, like I'm so close. So I can just work all this out later in marriage. And thank God that I did not have to do that.
So did you guys say you loved each other?
Oh, yeah.
See, that's another big reason I feel like I stayed. And I feel like, well, a lot of girls, but we love each other. And I loved in this episode, I mean, truthfully, I feel like they did a great job of giving good advice in this episode. And she said, I can't remember who said it, but there's so much more to marriage than love. Mm-hmm. And I stayed at least in mine because I was like, but we love each other. We love each other. Okay, we need to define what love is. Because love is not a feeling. Love is an action. And I read recently, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode, but it's the most profound book I've ever read. It's called The Men That We Need. And one of the chapters, I remember I was in Florida a couple months ago. I read the chapter and I started weeping on the beach because it talked about what love actually is. Mm-hmm. And me and my ex said, I love you all the time. Like, I was like, I have never been in love like this. This is the best. And it said, love is wanting the best for the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love is sacrificially caring more for the other person than yourself. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy crap. Mm-hmm. I was in a 2-year relationship where that was not the case at all.
Yeah.
We were chasing a feeling, not a commitment, not a like valuing each other above one another. And I feel like let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. There's a huge problem though with love in the whole dating scene with saying I love you, because we do it of like, hey, I have this feeling of love towards you. It's not to negate, like biblical love does come with feeling.
For sure.
It's just that here's what we miss. If marriage is meant to be a picture of Christ's love for the church, which it is, the Bible is clear about that, and the matrimony there, love stays. That's the thing that we miss. Like, Jesus doesn't pursue you and then change his mind.
Yeah.
And I think we've been conditioned to just feel like, oh, I love this person, and then he left. Or he said he loved me and then left, and then like little by little our view of God is changing. Is God going to leave me when he's mad at me? Is God going to leave me when I haven't performed well or I'm being a little bit crazy girl?
Yeah.
You know, we condition our view of love to be so different than what God says in scripture love is. But so I think like for starters, love stays. And so I would be careful saying you love somebody until you're ready to commit to loving them for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think, like, a big difference in when I first started dating my husband is, like, I was so cognizant to express any amount of feeling towards him because I was like, if he knows I like him, then he's going to know he has power over me.
Totally.
And I cannot be in that position again.
Totally, Shelley.
And prior to that, I mean, I had told every guy I'd ever dated since the 6th grade that I loved them. Like, it was just like, I love you. Like,
she has a love list.
I love you. Let's get married. Like, it's cool. And so I think, like, that prior relationship, like, really broke that piece of me. That was like, no. Like, this is serious. This is a lifelong commitment. this will impact you, your kids, your kids' kids. This will impact everything for generations to come, and rushing into that right now. If you're not sure now, it's going to get a million times worse. And so I think
which they said in the episode too.
Which they said, which is true.
Everything gets 10 times worse in
which
marriage.
is true.
Keep going.
It's so true.
Yeah, but I think that that it broke that kind of like desperate girl energy in me, like this prior relationship, because it made me realize that I never wanted to be that girl again that was begging for a guy to love me for who I am. Like, I just was like committed to that. I was like, I don't care if it takes me 5 billion years, and I don't care if I die alone. Like, I will never be so humiliated again to be like crying, begging somebody to love me for just being who I am and who I know that God's created me to be. So I think that like kind of closure in that sense within myself, and things that I'd always struggled with, of like wanting the guy to like me, like being the kind of pick me girl, like, oh, this guy asked me on a date, like, I feel so special. It's like, that was gone. Like, I was like, I don't care. Unless you seriously love everything about me, I'm out.
But it's kind of the idea of you need to love yourself before someone else can truly love you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I know that might sound, I don't know, kind of or woo-woo, but it's true. I feel like that's what the Lord's teaching me right now.
Yeah.
Like, Nicoletta, how can you expect someone else to love your body if you don't love your body?
Yeah.
How can you ever expect for someone to choose fully you if you don't choose fully you?
Yeah.
You know what I
if
mean?
you don't know who you are.
And exactly. And I feel like that's where the Lord's been doing a lot of work in my own life in the last 2 years, because my whole relationship history is changing myself. Oh, you don't want me to be loud and outgoing? I'll be more quiet and mute. Oh, you like when I wear this type of clothing, but I like ruffles and puff sleeves and like workout clothes and chill girl attire. Like, I'm either like hot or not. Like, there's like no in between, you know what I'm saying? And so like I would always change to them, but in the last few years, it's been this like slow, still confidence of like, man, like kind of what you said. Yeah. I would rather be single on my deathbed than be chosen for a lesser version of who God created me to be.
What's really crazy, and I can't wait for you to experience, Nicoletta, is a godly relationship. The guy should help you love yourself more, not make you feel less, not make you feel like you have to change or you have to be something different. And I can't wait for you to experience that, Nicoletta, because even as you're on this journey towards really embracing who God made you to be and like loving who you are and kind of rewriting some of the things that you've been told from guys of like, be this or be that, change this, change that, and then you'll be lovable. What's going to be really, really cool is when you jump into a secure relationship where the guy is healthy and not needing you to satisfy something, not needing you to be perfect to satisfy his own imperfections.
And his own insecurities.
Which a lot of that is them projecting. Like, they're trying to control you because they themselves feel like there's something tied up in there that's just, y'all can unpack that in counseling. But I'm excited for you to experience the kind of love where the guy actually helps you love yourself more, looks at the things that you don't like about yourself and says, wait, I love that about you. Because we were just talking about like being in a bathing suit this summer. When you're in a secure marriage, there's just something different that happens that you're just like, oh, I just don't feel this strife anymore of like, I have to be this or I'm not going to be loved.
Yeah. Or like in a healthy relationship, like, you'll get like the 10 to 15 pound healthy relationship fluff because like, especially at the beginning, like you're going out to dinner so much, you're like slamming chips and queso, like, you know, your
brother's laughing so hard.
You're just like living your life and you're just happy to be with each other. But like in prior relationships, like I would seriously have the thought in my head of like, if I gain too much weight, this person is going to break up with me. And sometimes that was explicit.
Yeah,
like,
totally. They tell you
sometimes
that.
it was like, hey, you're getting a little pudgy and, you know, basically telling me like, go work out or eat better or whatever. And that is like so crazy, like to have in a boyfriend, but imagining that relationship in a marriage.
Oh my gosh,
it'd be like prison. Like, you're telling me that I cannot go to the pantry and have myself a little treat. Like, this is going to cause drama every single day if that is the case. And so it's like little things like that like I have seen in prior relationships that I don't have now in my marriage, that I'm like, I'm so glad that I married this person. Like, it's small things like that I'm like, this is showing like the health and the security and the safety of this relationship based on our shared values, not these superficial things like, I want you to be smaller, or I want you to be this or that or whatever. Like, you know, even like leading up to my wedding day, like I think I told you that.
Yeah, that was so cool.
It's like, I was like, so stressed about looking a certain way on my wedding, and I would like cry to my husband about, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to be skinny enough. I'm not going to be this. And like every single time he's just like, you are going to be like the most beautiful bride. And like, I can't wait for you to be my wife. And like, nothing else matters. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, and then you kind of feel silly because you're like, okay, if that's how you feel, then I'm going to just keep eating my cupcakes.
I hate, though, that as little girls, we've been conditioned to feel like that's not normal. Because that is so, like, precious, and I want every girl to experience that.
But what about the girls who's sitting here going, I've never met that, I've never seen that, and I'll never find that?
It exists. And I think that once you get into a place to where you stop striving to earn the attention of men who value that, you'll find it.
Say that again.
And
I forgot what I said.
But I think part of the episode that I like kept thinking about is the idea of what to compromise on and things not to compromise on.
Okay, because they talk about compatibility.
Exactly.
I actually wanted to lean into that.
Yeah.
So, because I think a lot of, even girls in Christian circles, they can say, like, isn't godliness enough? Like, if he loves Jesus and I
100%.
love Jesus, or we say we do.
Which the church has said.
Yes, they do. People
which
do
is
say
not
this.
fair. The church has led us astray in that space of like, if he loves God and you love God, get married and have kids. It's like, no, keep going.
It's a different conversation when you're already married. Because I think there are a lot of times where you can get into a marriage and then you start thinking, what the actual did I do? Everyone goes through that.
Who the heck married 10 different people.
Who the heck did I marry? Part 2.
I need to have Colby on here because who the heck did I marry? Part 2 is so funny. I need to have Colby on here because he talks about like our first year of marriage. Like what?
No, I remember that.
Have him on next week, Laura.
He calls me like it's so. I literally cackle when he tells the story. Yeah, I should.
You should.
He's like. This wretched woman or something like that.
Y'all were duking it out.
Contentious. He calls me contentious. He's like, what have I gotten myself into, this contentious woman?
Proverbs 15:7. It's better to die alone than be married to a contentious woman. Also, I don't know if that's Proverbs 15:7. I just literally randomly pulled that out of my butt. Do not take I mean, I know that's in the Bible, but I don't think it's Proverbs 15:7. So Proverbs 15:7 is probably like, I don't know. Have
What's
wisdom.
so funny is like I am super chill girl. Like,
I thought you were about to say I am super contentious. I was like, I mean, at least
here's the thing,
first step is admit. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
I can get contentious. We are both escalators. We are both 8s, which is if you're Enneagrams. Yeah, I'm a 7-wing 8. He's an 8-wing 7. So we literally we are like duke it out, and I was like, if you don't duke it out, you don't love me. Like if you're not in it, you know. Don't do passivity. That's a whole nother conversation. If we
Laura
we
had
actually
conflict.
yeah, for sure.
Honestly, because you just come in rawr, and I'm like a little.
I'm so sorry.
I'm like, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, because I'm so like terrified of conflict, and Laura's like, just say it. Just say it. And I'm like,
say it with your whole chest.
Yeah, no, literally, I'm like, but you get it out of me, which is good, and that's why I respect you and love you now. But like for a while, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so scary. You're like, it's so love. Sorry. We know you love each other. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you love me right now.
Yeah,
but
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I need to work on that.
No, it's good. I appreciate it.
There is like this happened in our first year of marriage, and you can probably relate to this in some ways. I don't know. Matthew's like the most kind, gentle.
He's just golden
soul.
Retriever.
He is so
like purely. Yeah. It's hard to actually be mad at him. And that's hard for me because I'm mad at everybody. Like, so like every single person, like even my parents have mentioned this a couple times because like they're like, so do you guys like fight and I'm like, okay, we do, but it usually ends up me saying something very directly, him being like, oh, and like his feelings getting hurt, and then us talking about it later because I'm like, I just like attacked him basically, not meaning to, but just trying to like how you are, like just raise the issue, like let's talk about this,
let's escalate this to the highest.
Yeah. And so like I come in guns blazing and he's just like, you know, oh, like I'm sorry, I apologize, and I'm like, and then it has kind of checked me because I'm like, I need to not come at him so aggressively.
Yeah.
Listen, gentleness. Yeah. Gentleness is a fruit of the spirit. And
all right, well, I got that one. So
my husband.
I'm like, dang, I'm not. Maybe I have as bad then. Gentleness, I'm perfect at.
Good job. My husband would tell you that's a fruit of the spirit needs to take more ground in me.
Yeah.
We have gotten so much better about both being gentle and both like laughing at things that normally would have hurt our feelings and like we would punch back. But I am like, duke it out. I want to push back. I did this to Nicoletta earlier. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
We were walking in. I'm like, you tell me something and I want to push back, because then if I keep pushing back and you stick to your guns, then I know it's actually valid. I'm like, oh, that's actually, yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. You know, but that's probably toxic.
Okay, so back
I
to what
witnessed
we-
the fight. It was toxic a little bit.
Who was toxic? Who was toxic?
Both
Shelly?
sides, both sides.
You only say both because you love Laura a little bit more than me. I get it. I'm being honest. We know it's true. It's okay.
Y'all listening to this, pray for me for gentleness. I'm not kidding you. I woke up 15 times last night. I started counting because I'm like, how many times am I up through the night at this moment? We're weaning the pacifier as well as I have the newborn. So anyways, back to the episode.
Back to compromising and not compromising. Where do we
what
compromise and where do we like hold our guns?
Yeah, well, let's talk about compatibility in that, because I think there are some things that are like essentials that are like, if they don't believe these things and you guys haven't talked about and landed on the same spot in these couple things, call it off. It's not going to work. And then there are some things that are like, okay, that might be something that you can get past, or that y'all can come to an agreement on, or that you can have your differences on. But I think people want to know, like, what are those things?
Yeah. I think for me, one of my like biggest kind of deal breaker topics on compatibility is essentially requiring or expecting that your wife is a stay-at-home mom. For me, that is not something I necessarily foresee myself doing.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, but I know that getting into a marriage where that's the expectation, I would just be resentful my entire life. Like, I have built a career. I'm an attorney. Like, I spent a lot of time doing this. I do feel like I'm gifted in this specific area, and I don't feel a call to necessarily quit my job forever. And that's not to say that I won't take times where it's like a lighter workload or like take a step back. But for me, going into like 40, 50, 60, 70 years of marriage, like, that was not going to be something that works. So I think as like a Christian, you kind of feel the pressure of like, I'll just do whatever the man wants me to do.
Submit.
And we'll I'll submit and we'll just get married and I'll figure it out later. But if you know.
Hold on, let me pause. That's not submission. That's passivity.
Okay. Yes.
So, because here, that I think people think that that's what submission means, and submission is not sitting down, letting a man walk all over you. That's not submission. You are called to essentially play. The word helper is ezer, I think it is in Scripture. It's the same word that God used for the Holy Spirit. You are called to correct that man, to gently call him out. You are called to be his helper. And like, you have a voice in the marriage. So I just want to say this.
Totally.
Submission in the Bible is not sitting down and doing what you're told. There comes a point where when like something is in question, you are going to fall under his authority. That is good. That is a safety, because the leader takes the fall for the wrong decision. But you speak up. Moving on.
So like, if you're in a situation where you're having these conversations with a boyfriend or a fiance and he's like, these are my expectations, and you have that sense of like, I don't know, I don't want to do that, even if you don't voice that, it's probably not going to work, because if you end up doing it, you're just going to be at home, you're going to be resenting your situation and blaming him for it, even though you never spoke up and you stayed in the relationship.
And you do need to, if you're somebody who doesn't speak up, like, you need to actually work on having a voice, because your voice does matter. Your voice is valuable. There are two people in a relationship. It's not just one.
Yeah, and I think the other thing in terms of like compatibility is like finances is like a really big thing. I think that with my husband now, like, he knows that I'm a spender. Like, if I have a credit card, like, I'm a menace to society. So like, we can't have her with a credit card. But like, when we were dating, we had all those conversations. I was like, look, I racked up this credit card debt, like, oopsie, like, sorry about it. And we talked about it, and we were like, okay, and then, okay, I have these student loans. Okay, what's your plan? Okay, I don't have a plan. Like, do you want to help me with a plan? Like, and it did take some, like, humility in me, is like, like, I have built this career. I do have a good salary. Like, I do have good, like, potential future earnings, but I have been so bad with money management, and if you want to help me in that area, then I'm cool. Like, you can step in and, like, joint account, like, all that stuff, but in dating, I think that the way that you have those conversations is really telling, because I think it's not that like it was a surprise to any prior boyfriend. Like the prior boyfriends were just like, you're never going to spend any money. I'm going to put you on a budget. It was like controlling versus like,
Yeah, I've
we're
been in
on a team and like
that.
let's work on this together for our family. So I think like how you handle those conversations too is like super telling.
I think that's a really good point though, because I think we always look for the black and white list. And we've done episodes on green flags and red flags, so go back and listen to those episodes. But we make it so black and white. They need to check all these boxes, and if they don't check these boxes, it's off, and they have to be good at this and bad at this, etc. And it's like, are they humble?
Yeah.
Are they kind? And I heard something recently from my friend Kate, who has the Heart of Dating podcast. She goes, instead of looking at potential, look at trajectory.
Yep.
And I thought that was some of the most profound advice and wisdom I'd ever heard. Because I think kind of what you're saying, Chele, we look at potential. Like, oh man, like, yeah, he could totally become that one day. And I think as women being these helpers, these encouragers, we look and we're like, oh my gosh, like, I could see him being that one day. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. We could see a lot of people becoming a lot of things one day. Do they actually want to become that one day? Are they on the trajectory? Are they submitted to Jesus daily to where you're going to sit here and be like, man, in 5 years, I see that being radically transformed in you because of how in love you are with Jesus today. And so like with Laura, I mean, it's actually not a good example of this because there's not one thing that I'm sitting here blinding. But if there was something in you that I was like, man, like this thing of Laura,
lack of gentleness.
Lack of gentleness. But see, I'm not afraid of that in you because I'm like, you love Jesus so much. Mm-hmm. The trajectory of your life is that in 5 years, you're going to be a way more gentle mom than you are today. Way more gentle with me than you are today. But it's because I know you're radically in love with Jesus. And I feel like the guys I've dated in the past loved Jesus. But a lot of people in Texas love Jesus. Yeah, a lot of guys a lot of people claim to be Christians. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between I walk in step with the Spirit and I go to church on Sundays. So that's an area you cannot compromise.
You cannot compromise.
Cannot compromise.
And I would tell you this, if you are sinning together, there is no easier way to break up a relationship. To not just break up a relationship, because you might stay together. If you are sinning together, if you are sleeping together, if you are living together, if you are hooking up, if you are constantly gossiping about other people, there's no better way to destroy a relationship than to engage in sin together. So for starters, if you're living together, if you're sleeping together, it's time to break up. It's time to move on, okay? And pursue healing individually, and then potentially you can come back together. Invite wise counsel into your life, okay? If you slipped up one time, that's a different situation. Again, invite wise counsel. We're not getting into that right now. But I'm saying if you are in habitual sin together or even separately, go your separate ways and pursue health. So there's like a foundation like for people, and I'm saying that unashamedly. There is no like, but what about this, but what about that? If you're living together, move out, unless you don't know Jesus, in which case these rules, these like guidelines don't apply.
Totally.
There are some things that you and the girls kind of touched about this on the episode of there are things you need to talk about before you get engaged, before you get married.
100%.
Finance is actually one of the leading causes of divorce. Did you know that?
I 1000% knew that.
Yeah, because people don't talk about it, and then you end up getting to this place where there's so much resentment, where there's so much bitterness, there's so much like this person's out of control or I'm out of control or whatever it looks like. So you just need to talk about what are your spending habits? How do we want to submit to Jesus in this? I love that you modeled just integrity and honesty of like, here's where I'm at. I'm not saying this is good, but I am a spender. Here's all my credit card debt. Here's what you're getting into.
Help me.
Yeah.
I'm poor.
Me, I'm poor.
But not poor.
Totally.
Yeah. No,
I'm a lawyer. I'm not poor.
I'm not poor, but I'm really bad with money.
Totally. 100%. And we're going to be poor if I keep spending like this.
But that's a good point, Laura, because they really did give good advice. You need to talk about future. How do you want to raise your kids? Public or private school? Where do you want to live? Where do you want your money to go to? Do you want to travel? Do you not want to travel? Like,
do you want kids?
Do you want kids? There is so much, and I think once again we go off of this feeling, but I love them. No. When that feeling goes away, is he a man of God? 1, 2. When the feeling goes away, which it will, how do you want to build your life? Have you talked about the things that you're going to encounter? Yeah. And it's better to have an honest conversation and break up than it is to be in love, get married, and have absolutely no honesty. And so let's just popcorn. What are some of those things that you need to talk about before getting engaged?
You need to talk about kids. You need to talk about your role, your like how you see marriage, divorce, and remarriage.
Yes, good.
Like, does marriage mean is there an out for any reason?
Totally.
Let's just talk about all the reasons. And these conversations are uncomfortable. So it's okay. You're building intimacy and trust with this person as you're having these conversations.
A lot of resources, too, for people who are looking for them. We can put them in the show notes.
We can link some in show notes.
Like, expectations on what you consider to be cheating as well.
That's good.
Because people have
Infidelity.
different lines, like, with that. You know, like, are you somebody who considers porn, emotional relationships, work wives, like, all that kind of stuff? Do you consider that cheating? Or are you just like, I don't really care about any of that stuff, only if they cross the physical line? Because that's something that you will possibly find out later, whether that bothers you.
Yeah.
So you might as well have that conversation from the front end, like, this is what I mean in terms of cheating or fidelity or what that looks like in marriage. It means not going to hang out with your work, coworker one-on-one, or doing these different things. Like, that stuff matters because that's how different little ridges are, like, bursted open in a marriage.
Here's what's crazy is everybody goes into a marriage thinking, like, we're going to be fine. Like, we'll
figure
things will get better. We'll
It's
figure things out. It's all going to be up and to the right. We'll never be the people who end up processing an affair. We'll never be the people who whatever. And everyone, like, if you start off saying that, you're in a bad spot. But if you say, what protections can we come up with to make sure we don't get there, don't get to the spot where somebody's having an emotional affair? Like, so I think it's just, this is wisdom, having these conversations, even though they're uncomfortable and you think, like, we don't need to. Yes, you do.
Yeah, and I think another thing, which maybe is kind of a niche topic, but, like, on your thoughts on kids, on fertility, on infertility.
Yeah.
Because, like, how somebody chooses to handle infertility is going to be extremely different. And there's believers on, both sides of the aisle in terms of, like, assisted reproduction and, like, all those different things, surrogacy. So that might be something that you don't align on. And, maybe you get married and you unfortunately find out that you're having problems with fertility and you and your husband aren't aligned on what the next step is. When I talked with my husband about that, he was like, I don't know why you're asking me this because I've never even thought about this. I was like, You haven't thought about this, but I have. And if we get to that point, I want to know that we're aligned in this. And even though this is super premature, I don't want to marry somebody who has different expectations for what I believe in terms of fertility.
Something that I thought too, that I dated someone who didn't believe in counseling. And that was a really big red flag for me because he's like, no, we can figure it out. If we get in trouble in our relationship, we get married one day, we don't need counseling. And I remember being like, I cannot marry you. Because if you don't believe in external help, what if we're in a vicious cycle? Like, what if we literally cannot get out of this? And so even down to, man, what are next steps if we get into a place in our marriage where we don't know what to do? Are you okay with mentors? Are you okay with friends stepping in? How much are you willing to let other people in? And I think that's really telling in dating. If he's not willing to confess now, he will not be able to confess in marriage. I'm not married, but I have dated very secretive men. And he would get mad at me if I told my friend stuff. He'd be like, why did you tell them about our relationship? Why did you tell him about what we're going through? And I'd be like, because I needed help. And he's like, you and I should have dealt with that. And it would be anger rather than this humility of, like, there's a difference between, like, hey, I would have loved if you had just come to me first, which I often at that time was not good at because I was scared. Full transparency, I'm scared. But being with someone that's like, I'm willing to do anything to make this relationship work in the future. And just a side resource, JP Pekluda has great books. He's been on the podcast before. But something else that's really helpful, Scott Kadersha wrote a book called Ready or Not. And within that book, it gives 50 plus questions you should ask before ready or tying the knot. And
y'all
we can link
DM
it.
us if you want Scott on the show too.
Yeah, because he's fantastic. And so I think that there's so many things that we forget about because we're so caught up in the feelings. We're so excited about the marriage. We're so excited about, oh my gosh, I finally found my person. And I think that that's what Alex Cooper did a really great job giving advice to her friend Lauren of, like, when we actually talked about the facts, you realize that there's a lot more things that wasn't aligned.
Before you move on, you said something that was really critical. You about the sharing piece. And a godly man who is in a healthy spot, Colby does this incredibly well. If I go to our community group and I tell them something or we tell them something, they're going to challenge him. They're going to push back. He is the leader of our family. They're going to challenge me as well. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the leader. and they're going to push back and they're going to challenge him. And instead of saying, I can't believe you told them that, like, we needed to get aligned, he's like, thank you guys. Like, help me to be a better husband. Help me to lead our family in a better way. And it is so incredible. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me want to change.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the kind of leadership that I want to follow. And then I'm like, honestly, babe, you're taking ownership there. And you probably shouldn't, because that was me not being gentle.
But I think on that, though, like in marriage, it matters like the posture in which you share stuff with other people.
That's true. That's so
If you're
true.
just going to just be a naggy wife
Totally.
to somebody else,
Get him in
my
trouble.
husband
I'm gonna get him in
this,
trouble.
like,
Yeah.
or on like
100%.
little things
You
that
need
are
to
just,
honor
like,
them behind their back.
he didn't put his laundry away, he's gross, whatever. Like those kinds of things, like that's just like not
That's
honoring.
toxic. That's so toxic.
But if you're going and saying, hey, like, we've had this conversation, we're having this difficulty, and you're choosing your audience correctly in terms of like people who could actually help you, and not just like, I'm gearing up ammo because Chele hates her husband. Like, you know, like those
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
It matters in how you share that. And
Yeah.
are you sharing in the heat of the moment? Or are you sharing after you guys have talked about it, reflected, and have figured out, okay, we still need help here. And now I'm going to go share with community or with a friend or family to try to like figure out next steps.
There's a difference in complaining and asking for help.
Yeah.
And so you never want to come into a circle pointing the finger. And there's a difference too in this sharing in a marriage relationship and sharing in a dating relationship. Sharing in a marriage relationship, everyone's common goal should be to bring you guys back together instead of draw you further apart. And sometimes the advice that your friends give can draw your marriage further
Yeah.
apart. If they're like, yeah, he's nasty, I can't believe he did that. Like you can validate that person's emotion and experience and also point them back to the spouse.
Yeah.
But in dating, there's this weird thing, which we can bring it back to this, of you're also helping that person decide, is this somebody you want to yoke yourself with in marriage? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think something too, like the difference in dating versus marriage is like, when you're dating somebody, you're seeing like such a small microcosm of their life. And if you're only seeing little bitty bits of things about them that bother you, like when you're married, like what they said in the show, like it's going to get so much more apparent. Like all of their little tiny little icks or quirks of different things that they do. And sometimes it's not even wrong. It's just different from how you're used to it or whatever. Like my husband puts tortillas in the pantry. It drives me nuts. Like I put them in the fridge. It's just like little things like that that like you see when you're married, but like that's like a silly example, but that relates to like character flaws too. So you'll
Yeah.
see all of that. It'll be all amplified. So in dating, if you see like little bits of it, like you might as well have the hard conversation now and not have to find out later that you actually overlooked a ton of stuff that you should have called out or
Yeah.
at least dug down deeper into. So.
And I think one thing to add, just to add scripture to it, Ephesians 4:29, to something you said previously, is do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth unless it benefits those that listen. That goes for marriage, that goes for dating, that goes for friendship. You can go to friends and ask for wisdom, but if the other person was in the room, do not let unwholesome talk come out of your mouth unless it benefits those that listen. And that's something that I know when I went through a breakup, that changed my life because I made a conscious effort of like, they don't know my ex.
Yeah, you did an incredible job because I've watched you through a couple of breakups.
Yeah, sure have.
It's been honestly a pleasure, Nicoletta. Like you have done such a great job at honoring the guys that you have broken up with. Like you can be honest and still honor them, you know?
You're so kind.
So way to go. There's a difference in like protecting them and saying, I'm just going to hide all of the stuff that you took me through because that's not healthy. But like, I'm going to be honest and also I'm going to honor that person. Like you did such a great job at that.
You're so kind.
And there's one thing on that with like breaking up that they mentioned in the episode, and it was like about going no contact and just like fully like cutting it off at the root. Like I don't need closure from this person. And the way that they phrased it was like, I'm going to get it from counseling or I'm going to get it from internal healing. But like as believers, we would say, you know, you get it from following Christ. Like you get it from
and processing
prayer
with
and
your
processing
people.
with community and doing all these different things and counseling. Like all those things still apply. But like if you are the girl who's like fresh off a breakup, like you are not going to get closure from your ex. And even if you think if we just have one more conversation, I'm going to feel better, like just let go of that and just know that even if you have a conversation, it's probably going to open a new wound, re-slash the stitches or whatever. It's going to make something worse. And it's better to just make it your choice to fully be done, cut it off and move on, block them on everything, and never speak to them again. And that's not a hateful thing necessarily. That's like for your own peace and for your own healing.
It's so funny that this whole no contact trend is like such a big thing because I'm like, that's feels like the only option. Like, why is that even a thing? Why are people like, oh, no contact? And it's because we're still holding on or still trying to have a friendship. And it's like, you got to heal and you got to go your separate ways. I have done that before. I tried to serve on a team with a guy that we broke up. It was so bad. And I couldn't heal or move on until we just like completely like, I'm not serving here anymore. You know, you guys, we have to be separated so that we can heal. Like no contact is not an option to me.
Let go of the pressure to post an Instagram story so that your ex might see it and be like, oh, wow, I kind of miss her. It's either not happening or or it's just like, why do you even want that? Like, you're wasting so much energy. You don't want to manipulate
yourself to be chosen again.
I know.
Exactly.
And I did it. I'm shaking my head. I'm like, yeah, I was.
No,
I
totally did that. I totally did that.
I 1000% did it. You know, and you see, and you're like, why is he watching my story? You know, like, oh my gosh, he looked at 3 of my stories. He's looking at my stories every single day, or whatever that looks like. We have an episode called "Closure and Getting Your Power Back After a Breakup," so go listen to that episode. Are there any final remarks that y'all would say? I think the biggest thing too to just lean in on that we didn't close the loop on is like, what are the other things that you have to talk about before you get married? We talked kids, we talked your view on marriage, we talked finances, we talked like career stuff, family. For me, I am a Christian speaker. I'm a Bible teacher. I dated a guy who thought that I would be in sin if I even opened the Bible with the videographer, Nick, Chele's brother, is in the room. If I open the Bible and I'm sharing this podcast and he's in the room, I am in sin. That's not going to work for me. I don't land there, and I am a Bible teacher. That is what God has created me to do. We are not compatible in that sense. We are not aligned. That's not going to work. And so I think there are things like that, and it's knowing like there are so many nuances of like I am still like submitting to headship and submitting to someone else in like biblical convictions and things like that. But what are is there anything else that we missed? Like, you have to talk about this before you get married.
Not necessarily on that point, but I do have one thing that I've just been thinking about is more so like after a breakup, like having some period of reflection where you're looking back and you're thinking, okay, what are things that I liked about this relationship and what are things that I did not like about this relationship? And what are things that in my ideal perfect world, like I will have in my next relationship? And something that they said in the episode that I really liked is like, every person you date is one step closer to the person you might marry. I don't know if that's necessarily biblical, but I do like the process of like, I can make my next choice better or more aligned based on the things that I've learned. Because what you don't want to do is keep going back to the same type of guy, because it's insane. Like, you're literally insanity, repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And my biggest lesson was like, after this last breakup, I was like, I never want to feel this way ever again. I never want to feel this desperate for a man to choose me. What can I change in myself right now so that my next relationship is better?
Yeah.
And when I started dating again, it was like an immediate shift. Like, if I was on a date with a guy who was like, I felt like I was having to like do too much to like enjoy being with them, I was like, I'm out. When normally I would be like, no, I want to win this guy over. And then when I went on a date with my husband, it was immediate like peace. It was like, I'm just like existing.
Yeah, you didn't have to try.
I'm just existing, and he's like obsessed with me. Like,
totally,
this is amazing.
Totally.
Yeah, JP Pekluda says something really good. He goes, you need to know what you're shopping for before you go to the grocery store, or you're just gonna buy everything in the store.
Yeah,
girl's hungry,
and it's like this, like, yeah, we're thirsty.
Yeah, desperate energy.
Yeah, and it's just this idea of like you need to know what you're buying before you walk into the grocery store. And I actually took that into consideration. And the other day was like, like, what are my non-negotiables? What are the things that I have seen in relationships that I don't want again in my next one? Like, what are the things that I want to do differently for myself? Like, and I think that's a big thing too. Stop only worrying about what they need to be. Start thinking about who you want to be. Like, something that I am extremely confident, or something that I'm pretty much sitting here going is a non-negotiable for myself, is changing myself. I want to walk into rooms being confident in who Nicoletta is rather than how I look. Like, that is a non-negotiable for me in my next relationship. And so I think it's just when you have a clear-cut list that lines up with scripture, not just like, oh, he's hot and he's funny and he makes me feel really good. It's like, no, like, he's humble. He's kind. He loves Jesus. Like, he's able to admit that he's wrong. He's okay with me processing with community. There's really important things that you need to have written down so that when or if you start dating someone again, you can look back to when you were sober-minded. You can look back at when you were not having love goggles on. And another just even further tip that I would give someone is sit with Jesus and ask him to write your list. Lord, who do you want me to look for in my next relationship? What are the qualities you want me to write down? And it's that practice of silence and solitude that I love to talk about on every single episode, is getting quiet before the Lord, putting your phone away, going, God, who is the type of man you want me to pray for? Because my wisdom is your foolishness, as it says in 1 Corinthians 1. And we sit here and think like, oh, I want this, I want that. Like my friend has that. Oh, I saw that on TV. That sounds good. Okay, cool. Boom, done. Okay, is that a godly man? Or is that just what you think would be good for you? Because we only know what we want, but God knows what we need. And it just changes things.
I think the last thing I want to say is that there is no perfect guy. I think sometimes we can get really caught up in he needs to be all these things, or there are these areas of maturity and that need to grow. And guess what? There are areas of maturity in each of you and us too that also need to grow. And the goal is to grow together into godliness. And so I think it's not this like checklist of like, am I expecting him to have 50-year-old maturity as a 30-year-old,
Yeah.
or for like his age, his walk with the Lord, is he like genuinely submitting himself to godly counsel, reading his Bible, like leading me not into sin, are we having these honest conversations? And so how does he respond when I bring up something hard to him? That's another like really big thing. How does he respond? Does he get defensive and push me away?
So important.
Can he say I'm sorry? Like that's a huge thing. Like, can he say I'm sorry? But you don't need to expect him to be this like perfect guy, because guess what? You're not a perfect girl. And so
good.
the last thing, I want to end the episode just sharing, like, if there's anybody listening to this who is like questioning your own relationship with the Lord, or if you even have like the foundation, Jesus loves you so incredibly much. I know that's something that you probably have heard before, but this God like literally said, I want you in all of your flaws, and everything that you did last night, and everything that you have done to you would think makes me angry. Like, I sent my son to die for that, to pay for it, and to be raised to life again so that I could have a relationship with you. And I'm not going to unchoose you when you mess up. I choose you. I want you. I love you. And you can give your life to Jesus today and be secure knowing I'm going to heaven. I have this love that stays, this love that is permanent, that starts with the Lord. It doesn't start with a relationship. It starts with Jesus. And so some of y'all need to wrestle through that. Call your friends right now and say like, hey, I need to know the kind of love that stays first and foremost with God, because I am not sure where I stand with him.
And last two things, and then we don't need to talk about it, but two really good pieces of advice that they said in the episode was, one, if you're going through a breakup, you're only blowing up one part of your life, not your whole life.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're only blowing up one.
That's good.
Secondly is, if you ask yourself this question, if you didn't have a time clock, would you be with this person? And I think that was really, really good. And so there's so much more we could dive into in this episode. Chele, I just want to honor you in front of your brother in the crowds that are not here, but just the people on the other end. You have done so much for this podcast. You have been an amazing friend to Laura, to me as well. I've loved walking through little bits and parts of pieces of our story together, and you are wise. And I just feel like your story is a really beautiful picture of redemption. I love seeing just your confidence. Your confidence has changed walking into the room in the season of life you're in now than compared to previous seasons. And so thank you for being on this episode. We love you. We love you, holy babes. Please share this episode. We truly gain new people, new followers of Jesus by you simply just sharing on your stories. And we're just grateful for those who are in our corner. We hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening, guys.